Sun's up today. Amazing, right? I waited. Just fresh off of the Facebook. In a big argument. Well, heated debate, maybe. No, not even heated. Educated debate with a friend of mine. I enjoy a good argument. If somebody's feels educated and they want to have a debate, I'll friend people like that. I'll find them on groups, especially like the flat Earth groups and stuff like that. There'll be people to join those groups just to prove flat Earthers wrong. I totally sympathize, empathize. I was one of them for a while, but anyway, I seek them out and find them, friend them. Ups your algorithm to have good conversation. And if you find intelligent people like Gary, he can debate well for the heliocentric side. He's very good at it. He knows what he's talking about. He knows their science. He knows he's more educated than I am on a lot of things, right? But he's trying to defend this lie. So it makes it easy for me to defeat him because I'm just bringing the truth, right? So it's always easy to defend truth because it's truth. It defends itself. It just does it. You just present it, and it automatically does all the work. Anyway, yeah, he can bring a good argument, maybe even outsmart me on a subject, something complicated, and use some big words to dinging right there, to try to, well, just to try to present his argument very well. He can present a very good argument. And but then I can tear him up on, usually he'll ask for one thing. So just show me one evidence. And I'll give him a list of evidence. And he'll pick one out of the list that he can have an argument with, and he'll argue on that one, and that's fine. So hey, sometimes he's right, whatever. Once in a while I've had to rethink things, maybe twice. Anyway, that's because they hide a lot of science in their shit. Like the heliocentric science has a lot of real science in it. Like, of course it needs to, in order to reflect the lie better. You gotta lie. In order to lie really good, you gotta weave in a bunch of truth. One of my friends who was a liar when I was young, he would tell other people's story in the first person. So if you told him a story, he would go tell it to somebody else, but it would be him experiencing all that stuff or whatever. So he would tell your story, but use he would live it in his mind or whatever. And anyway, whatever, there's people like that. It's just funny. But yeah, so anyway, Gary and I we conversate quite a bit, and he tried to defend the Big Bang this morning, and I told him that it's physically impossible for the Big Bang to happen. There's dinging again. And he said that, how do you figure, or whatever, it could have happened. And so I told him about the laws of an explosion, that everything will be spreading out from the source. All debris will be evenly spread from one another, getting further apart from the source, getting further from each other. So if our universe was from an explosion, then everything should be spinning in the same direction, and every little piece of debris or whatever, like a sun, a planet, a star, whatever, should all just be one thing, an even amount of space, and one other thing, evenly spaced all the way around. Like it's very, everything in our mathematical universe is mathematical. Everything is. It's all math. So there's laws that just restrict the universe. By definition is a closed system. So therefore it has to, everything has to go by these laws, right? You can't, unless there's an outside source that's bigger than the laws. But the laws run everything in this universe. And so if there was a big bang in the center, boom, and everything exploded, then there would be like Earth, the sun, Mars, whatever. We'd all be evenly spaced from each other. We'd be getting further apart from each other as we got further from the source. We don't observe that. That's not even close. And everything would be spinning in the same direction. We've found entire galaxies spinning in the wrong direction, but we find moons and things spinning in the wrong direction, orbiting the wrong way. And I know that science finds all these little stupid loopholes. And I even heard one guy saying that he was doing the angular momentum theory or whatever, where he threw marbles on a fucking trampoline, and they all span this way, and then they turned and they spun that way at a certain point or whatever. So, and then he was saying, oh, it's just that things are that old that it's mixing up and starting to come back together and all this stuff. It couldn't. The power of the explosion would have been so great, especially at first, that the things, the gravity and all this other stuff, couldn't have affected anything quickly enough to make clusters or galaxies or anything like that, because the force to move away from each other and move away from the source would be just way too great. That force would be over and supersede anything else. Like, gravity is such a weak theory and weak everything about it, that they even say that the moon broke off of Earth and is getting further away, even though it has its own gravity and we have gravity, and they're both pulling forces. They're pushing apart from each other in space because of the orbit, decaying orbit. Well, decaying orbit should go in, and then you come to the planet, you crash. It doesn't go out. Why is the moon going out? And it's got a pulling force, and the Earth has a pulling force. They're pulling apart as they... Your whole theory is stupid. Right? Now, obviously with billions of years, you can kind of try to explain some things, right? You could say that, Earth and Mars and a whole lot of us all broke off the sun or whatever. We were all part of it. You have to say that because the sun shrinks every year. So when you go back in time, the sun grows every year. So if you go back 1 billion years, the sun shrinks a foot. Almost a foot every year. That's 1 billion feet. It's a long fucking ways. Like, we're not the third rock from the sun anymore. Couple, 3, 6 billion, 1 trillion. Like, the universe gets older. That's another thing. The universe gets older every year by exponential numbers, according to science. They keep needing more time to hide in. So every year, somebody has to say, oh no, I guess it was this old. Because in order for our conclusion to work, we need science to go this way. Well, in order for science to work, You got to throw away your conclusions and follow it. You do tests. You demonstrate to yourself how things work, and then you go that way. And you learn from that, and you say, okay, well, it had to go this way. Here we go. So, something had to be outside of the universe and manipulate it and set things in motion. And I liked the way my preacher said this, and he said, God put it that way to make your theory look stupid. Fucking right on. And I agree with that. Like, he put the galaxies there because what it was a professor from Berkeley had asked him, well, why do you think it's like that? Planet spinning the wrong way and all breaking the laws of an explosion and all that stuff. And he said, well, I think God put it that way to make your theory look stupid. Done. Conversation over. New theory. Big Bang couldn't have happened. Had to be Big God. Had to be. Even in your heliocentric universe. And that old preacher that I'm talking about, old, he's old now, is a heliocentric person. He's not a flat earther. But he's a six-day creationist and a young earth, and can test and demonstrate that that's all factual. People thinking that, oh, well, they aged it through the glaciers. Did you ever look into the science? How did they come up with the numbers? They say that every layer in the ice is a year. Why? Why do you say that? Because we needed it to be that in order for our conclusion to work out. That's why they say that. Otherwise, it won't work out to our conclusion. So in order to get to my conclusion, they have to be this age. But I live in Canada. It's fucking snow out there right now. And I'll tell you, if this layer stays, it would be a layer in the ice. And then another storm or two would be another layer in the fucking ice. And then I've seen single storms where it was like fluffy snow, and then we got like a more packy snow, or we got a bunch of fluffy snow, it changes to rain, and then, or to freezing rain, and then to rain, or whatever. So you'll get this like a layer of hard, crunchy snow, and then when you fall through it, it's all fluff under there still, because the water never got to the fluff, it froze. And then that hard layer freezes. Well, that it would all be layers. And then when you piled glacier amounts on that, it would all concave after a while and crush and freeze and make different colors and stuff like that. Obviously, it's what's going to happen. And but you could get, hundreds a year. Well, you will get hundreds a year. So you could get thousands in a year. And they never tested it. They never actually went out and put something on a glacier, left it there for a couple years, and then went back and seen what the snow gain is. And they can't read it through satellites because the snow reflects the satellite and it's hard to get a reading. And you can't really get a reading of the inside of a glacier. You can only read the outside edge. And we know that it erodes away, but it always comes back. And we know that there's a water cycle, so that sometimes glaciers can disappear and then they'll grow back over time. We've seen it. We've seen it in my lifetime. Where years ago they were, polar bears are dying and all that stuff, and glaciers are disappearing, and now they're back. If you read the Jewish books, the waters trapped on Earth are pissed that they were trapped on Earth, because there's waters that are above us that are closer to God, and they can praise God more easily than the waters on Earth. So So God had to actually get the angel of the face to destroy the whole earth during creation and on one of the days, and then start over again in order to get the waters to actually listen to him and separate the waters from the waters above from the waters below. But the waters above, on the second part of that day, when he did it the second time, he made a deal with the waters below that in order to praise God, the waters above have to ask the waters below permission. And so some of those water molecules, by that logic, could be frozen into the glaciers as a punishment for not allowing the praise of God during a certain time span. Like when they were asked, certain waters said no, so those waters couldn't praise God. So God didn't get praised that day, so then he figured out which molecules said no, and he melts some glacier and then puts them on top of that glacier, and they're stuck in a frozen stasis for an undetermined amount of time before they're allowed back into the water cycle again, where they can go and travel the whole earth and see and feel and go into man and go through man and go through the animals and the trees and the whole life cycle, right? Everything's an amazing creation, right? Even the wind. That's you can read the book of The Alchemist. That's Enoch. When he talks to the old king, that's Metatron. That's Enoch. That's the angel formation of Enoch. Once he's transcribed into an angel or whatever, he becomes Metatron. It was actually Metatron in the form of Enoch, the old king, coming down and talking to the alchemist and setting him on his journey and telling him about the Umium Infernum and all that stuff. Really cool book. Cool book just for the story and stuff, even if you don't believe in alchemy or in religion or whatever. Just the book's very interesting. You can, obviously you can have alchemy without God. It's wizardry. So you can have, but with a twist. There has to be a magical power. That's the other thing. All of our science, everything that denies God, still has to admit that we're something bigger than what we see and feel. This is just a container that we're in, but there's something inside of that container that's more than what we know. There's more than what we comprehend. And then I loved the string theory, especially when it came out. I bought right into it. I was like, finally, right? Something that actually the science fits something, like it fits to that spiritual side. Because I was raised like a hippie Wiccan kind of person. That's my family's traits, right? So they are still really susceptible to the Wiccan side and like tarot cards and all that kind of shit, And so coming from that, I recognize it. And anyway, yeah, so I figured where I was going with that. I do that a lot. It's probably a good thing. If I was going to take over the world, that's what I should do a video on. I have a real good plan, as it were. I could talk about where I'd screw with economies. I would not show myself. Pick people that I liked, that I could control, give them immense amounts of power and get them to do my bidding from the sidelines, in order to always be sure that when or if the shit hits the fan, they're also a fall guy. But moreover, and to the point, eventually, I would want to be the figurehead of power as well, because like any addiction, you can never get enough. So even knowing that I possessed the power over whoever, my minions, let's just say, I could hold that power over them, but I would eventually want to be that figurehead and hold all that power openly to everybody. But I would want to be assured in my decision before I ever showed my face. Think of the Inspector Gadget bad guy. You know, you only get to see his hand or whatever. Well, that's the way you would want to be. You wouldn't even want... He was even too forward as the leader of the villains, because Gadget always made it back to him. Right? So, that's why, as the leader, I would give even the wealth, because it's just fake anyway. So, I would even give the appearance of wealth to my minion, or dual minions, whatever. Make sure it's more than one, because if one has everything, then he's actually could potentially have the power or take it, right? So you want to give him a good chunk, make him fucking powerful, but not the only one. You want to make sure that it's 2, 3, 4 of them, right? And have them in different groups. Preferably if they don't like each other. That'd be even better. They're less likely to lie against you if they fucking hate each other. Right? So you'd want to pick people that had like a grudge against each other in some way or form, and play that to your advantage, obviously, right? But eventually, show yourself. But before you'd have to show yourself, you'd need the population, the world, to be in a fully submissive position. Right? You can't have 1% of the people who could revolt against you easily, right? So you'd want them to be dependents. Because if you're dependent upon me to your survival, then then you can't take my power. You can't even revolt against me, because you need what I have. Right? You'd have to get that first before you could get me, in order to ensure that you survive after you get me. Otherwise, it takes away initiative. There's still a point. You could, think about the children kind of thing. Oh, somebody think of the children! but really, if I poison you and then hold the temporary antidote for the poisoning and say, well, as long as you keep taking my antidote, you're not going to die. You'll live. But I'm the only one that knows the recipe to that antidote. And so I'm going to hold the power over you forever. And once you're cut off from the supply of that, you're going to die. Because then I could be confident enough to just say, well, fuck. Screw all these guys, my minions. I'm still going to need you, but you don't need to be such figureheadly powers anymore. And if you were getting close to toting any lines or whatever, you're gone. And chances are you're all gone, right? Because once I'm the figurehead, that means their wealth isn't theirs anymore. All of that power and wealth all comes back to me again. So then I can say to my minion or whatever, well, you can still live off of me. You'll still live good, but you don't have power anymore. Whatever residual power that was still in your face and in your name or whatever, yeah, sure, that's still there, and you keep your house. But as far as like owning all these companies and stocks and all that stuff, well, all that currency's just been deleted. That'd be the one step that you would have to do during that. Like in today's society, you would want to go to the digital currency, bankrupting the dollar, and so that it's just equity and stuff that holds all the wealth, right? Anyway, the minions would still be useful tools even once you got there, because if they were loyal and still wanted that power that they could hold, it would still be a lot. They'd have a way better life than any other human on Earth, and they could help you keep control over any populations. Make sure that your bidding's carried out so you don't have to micromanage, because micromanaging's stupid and you lose. That's the other reason that you don't want to be seen, because then you got to micromanage your appearance or whatever, like your facade. You have to micromanage, what the public thinks of you and all these other things that have to be dealt with. Whereas if you're hidden and just kind of unknown in the background, but you control it all, everything's under your code keys. So, yeah, you're rich, but now you're not. Now you own nothing. You're broke. Your companies are all bankrupt. Right? Just that quick. And that's how quickly it can happen in our society. They can change our economy at the push of a button anytime. They're doing it this way for some reason, slowly kicking us out. Well, again, you would have to do things in a slow manner in order to assure that submissive compliance and squash the resistance. Right? Go right after kids and stuff. Make sure that everybody needs this. Whatever this is that you hold. It's mine. Nobody knows how to do it. Nobody knows how to quite make it except for like my guy or whatever. Me personally holding the key code to get into the recipe to make that. And obviously that's just a simple recipe, but I mean a recipe like that, like the one I'm speaking of, would be so complicated nobody would remember it off the top of their head, I wouldn't think. If you did, you'd be, well, some super chemist, whatever. It would be your head at that point. Somebody was that intelligent, that's a threat. Can't have that kind of intelligence within the system near me, in this instance. It's hypothetical. Can't have that kind of intelligence near me because it is a threat. Number one, it could see what I'm doing, see through my tricks, and move them to their benefit. Number two, they could take the recipe and give it away, save mankind or whatever. So couldn't have that kind of intelligence. You'd want useful idiots. So you'd want people that would buy into the heliocentric model, even though they're fully educated in it. The fully educated in it part would actually make them believe it more, and they're actually going to stand to defend it just based because they've spent so much time learning it and put so much of their focus and energy into it and believe it so thoroughly. Like a religion, they're just going to defend it blindly or blatant, I was a heliocentric, religious heliocentric for a long time. Most my young life or whatever, right? Obviously, like I said, that's how I was raised. So, it's what I knew, it's what I did. I defended it. It's the same way that my buddy does, Gary, there or whatever. It's the other reason I have so much respect for people like that and give them so much of the benefit of the doubt and whatever. I'll argue with them forever. Now, days when I just warn. There's a lot, I'm getting more and more haters on here every day.